This is a mallet I made 10 years ago. This is a mallet I made 5 years ago. And this is a mallet I have just finished making that is perfect in every imaginable way, apart from one key thing. It took me about 6 months to make this thing, which if you do the maths, makes it worth about this much. And, well, I want to sell it for that. Help. Help me. The problem we've got here is that these woods do not like to be rushed.
Whoa!
For the head, I'm going to be using leadwood, which, as you'd expect from the name, is heavy, hard and dense. And for the handle, I'm going to be using olive wood, another hard, dense timber that has some of the wildest grain you'll ever see. And just to demonstrate why it's worth inflicting this upon myself, this is the biggest mallet I could find in my local tool store, weighing in at around about 660 grams. And this, on the other hand, is my mallet. It's actually slightly heavier, but in a much more comfortable, ergonomic, and let's face it, better looking design. The main drawback is they are an absolute nightmare to try and make. Well, that looks terrible. So we're going to kick things off by trying to drill some holes into the end grain of the handles using this fancy fence. And what's special about this fence is the way it references the wood. You see, if there's variation in the length of these blocks and I set the depth stop to 4mm on this one, it's gonna drill to 4mm deep. But then if I put a piece of wood that's slightly shorter under the drill, it's not gonna reach. And so to solve this, a wedge is slid under the piece of wood which pushes it up to the stop at the top of the fence, which now means that all subtle variation in the wood is accounted for and I don't end up with coin sitting proud like this. And while we're here, we're also going to drill holes in the leadwood, which will become mortises for the handles, but before mounting these on the lathe, the corners need to be sliced off on the bandsaw. And for that, we're going to be using this special jig I made that slots into the miter saw track, giving me a preset distance from the edge of the blade, which is perfect for these leadwood blocks. And what's more, you can slot this over the top of it, which then makes it perfect for the slightly smaller olive wood blocks. Now, with all of the wood prepped, it's time for us to use a machine that I haven't dared to turn on. This is my dual spindle 3-phase CNC wood lathe that we're finally going to put to the test. Genuinely, we've never turned it on before, we don't even know if it works, and we have no idea how to operate it.
So, to provide just a little bit of context here, this is the manual. We've had a flick through. It's in very broken English.
Didn't think it's made in Microsoft Paint.
Oh yeah, look, that's when you know it's high quality stuff. This is the control interface. It's just a little bit dusty from lack of use.
I just heard a shunt.
Welcome to use this system.
Right.
It's all in Chinese. We're gonna have to learn Chinese pretty quick.
So yeah, it wasn't looking good. This machine is the only solution I have to putting these mallets into production, and it would be a huge waste of money if we weren't able to get it to work. So we followed the instructions where we could. Oh my lord! And then loaded in a test program to see what this thing was capable of.
Okay, that's all milling. I don't think it's saying anything else. I think this is it.
You just go. Oh my god.
Can you tell we're terrified?
This is awful.
Okay.
Wait, what do I press?
Oh right, yeah. Press turn on. So auto, the yellow button, bottom left.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's cycle start, the green on the right.
Okay.
Over there.
Yeah. Oh, God.
This is awful.
This is it.
This
right.
is it.
Cycle start.
2, 1, go.
Holy sh**.
My God!
I might just stand near the emergency stop button.
But do you want to stand that close to it?
Yeah. That's the scary bit. Can you pass your mic? Oh, that's okay. Now.
That's bonkers!
That is such a heavy cut.
That's crazy!
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh my God! Wow! That was incredible! I'm so tense.
That was
My muscles.
Oh my God.
That's
One pass.
incredible.
So with our newfound confidence in this monster of a machine, we continued conducting various tests to dial in the accuracy of the machine to the tolerances we required, with plenty of casualties along the way. We even realised at one point that we installed the machine the complete wrong way round, which explained why all of the controls and user interfaces were seemingly
3,
backwards.
2, 1.
Ooh!
What happened?
Did we not zero the tool when we went through?
We didn't zero it, did we?
Before long, however, we finally started finding success and the machine was able to complete its operations without blowing up anything. And perhaps more importantly, managed to get it down to the perfect diameter.
Feels like 30.5.
30.5, yeah?
Oh, f***ing hell!
Oh! What?
So with the testing complete, now it's time to see how this machine will handle olive wood.
Actually scared again.
Yeah, so am I. This is nice. I feel at home.
There we go, yeah, perfect.
I was getting too complacent.
Well, exactly. I'm going to step back from this, I think.
Yeah.
Now this olive wood is significantly heavier than the material we were using to test the machine, and not only that, the grain on it is absolutely mental. This gives rise to minor issues like tear out and major issues like, you know, it could just potentially blow up at any minute. We do try to carefully select the blocks to avoid this happening, but sometimes you just don't know until it's turned.
Wow! That looks so good!
Yeah. Oh, that's a rippled one. There's curls
It is,
in it.
yeah.
Then using that hole you saw me drill earlier, the handle was remounted on my lathe using a screw chuck, which after parting away the excess material, would give me full access to the length of the handle for sanding.
Woohoo!
Yeah, feel my wood.
I'm feeling it.
But this success was short-lived because next we have to figure out how to make the most important part of the mallet. The leadwood head.
Right, okay, that is pretty close to the prongs already.
It did sink into it. Barely. Obviously, we still don't know if this end's going to hold up. This is sketchy.
Yeah, it was sort of nice knowing you.
Okay.
Going, 3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
And just to reiterate, this is a seriously heavy piece of wood spinning at a few thousand RPM that, to be honest, we're not entirely sure if this machine is even built to handle. This entire testing process was absolutely terrifying.
Wow, that is dusty.
Wow!
Thank you, mate. Well, that's a rather nice finish. That is so...
Bloody hell!
That's like almost finished.
Oh my god!
I mean, it was utterly terrifying, and we haven't got any breakout around them either.
That's really impressive.
Next, the heads could be sanded on the lathe before being taken to the bandsaw and sliced into 3 using this fancy jig I made. And so with all of these heads sliced up, the next problem we need to overcome is how to put a concave profile on the faces of these mallets. And of all the ways you can possibly work on leadwood, trying to shape its end grain is probably the hardest. Here's why.
Whoa!
So I had to pull out the big guns and make another jig that used a router clamped horizontally in a column, which would then follow a template on the base of the jig that would effectively trace the profile onto the mallet. There were some interesting challenges associated with this process. For example, if you turn the lathe on in its normal direction and you feed the router in from the front, the cutting directions literally mesh together like gears and it doesn't do anything. Now you might think the solution to this is to put the lathe in reverse. The problem with this is that the cutting direction is now down, and so the force on the cutter is up, which means if I were to get a catch, this could just go flying across the room. And so eventually I realized that by keeping the lathe in reverse but feeding the router from the opposite side of the mallet, not only would this ensure the cutting directions were against each other, thus allowing it to cut, but it would also push the router down into the bed, which makes it far more secure. The only downside is the direction in which the razor-sharp leadwood chips are launched. I'm ashamed at how long it took me to figure out I could just put a Perspex shield on it. Anyway, these heads could now be sanded and chamfered to 240 grit before being taped off and pre-finished in hard wax oil in preparation for assembly. For this, I'm using these crazy torture device looking jigs to hold the mallet head in position while the epoxy dries, which have also been designed to give me plenty of space to wipe away all of the squeeze out with acetone. This does of course wipe off the hard wax oil as well, but it's already served its purpose in preventing the epoxy from soaking into the show faces of the grain, making it harder to remove. I'll apply a top-up coat later.
So by this point we are almost there. All that needs to be done is to machine up a bunch of coins that we're going to use to cover these holes in the end of the mallet. And to prototype these coins, we're going to be using a machine provided to us by Laserpecker.
As you may know, we've already got a laser cutter which is serving us very well. However, this machine serves another purpose in that we can place it anywhere we want and engrave the material underneath, meaning you're not restricted by trying to fit something inside an enclosure. But perhaps more importantly, this is a dual laser that allows you to switch between a 450 nanometer wavelength, which is generally used for organic matter such as wood and cardboard, to a 1064 nanometer wavelength, which is perfect for engraving metal. If you're interested in getting one of these lasers yourself, I'll put a link in the description below, as well as a 10% off voucher. These could then be epoxied into the head of the mallet, followed by 2 layers of hard wax oil and safely stored in boxes ready to be shipped. If you're interested in getting one of these mallets yourself, we're opening pre-orders for a very short window before closing them off to a first come, first served basis. And so if you want to guarantee ownership of one of these things, check out the link in the description to find out more.